Okay, so I got my Burger Motorsports package today. Obviously, I've already opened it, but pretty simple. It doesn't really come with instructions, which sort of sucks, but they're all available on their website, and I've already watched a lot of videos, so I sort of know what's going on. It comes with this splice, tap splice right there. That's for this blue wire here, and it goes to the O2 sensor. It comes with this OBD2 plug, which you plug in inside the car and then kind of snake underneath the dash into the engine compartment, and plug that into the Molex connector here. And then the rest of these plugs are pretty self-explanatory. They just intercept the signals from the computer or from the sensors, and then send different signaling back to the computer. So I've watched a couple YouTube videos where people are talking about using screwdrivers and stuff for your Volkswagen plugs. There's really no need for that. I mean, I understand your frustration with these plugs, but if you notice, there's a tab on the back, and all you have to do is push down on that tab. It will lift. See? Super easy. And then you're not shoving a screwdriver into your clip, potentially damaging it. That's how people are breaking them, because they're shoving metal objects into their clips. So just to show you, clipped, and then see if I can do this with camera here. Just push down. Sometimes you have to push the connector together a little bit, but it'll come right apart. Just push down on that little back tab. You sort of push at a 45-degree angle, not straight down. You just sort of pull back and down. Okay, so anyways, enough of that. Let's get to the install. Okay, so unfortunately I got impatient. I didn't have my camera with me, and I've already got it installed, but I will show you everything that I did and how easy it was to access all of the plugs. I did this on my lunch break at work. It was so simple. I did end up removing the battery, which was super easy. Just two 10mm nuts on there. And then you needed a 13 for down, or I'm sorry, I think that's a 15 for down there. Just remove that bracket right there, then slide the battery forward slightly, lift up. So my box is actually back in there. You can't even see it. So very, very hidden. I didn't really want it to look to be visible at all or look abnormal in here, so I routed my wires underneath the battery tray and then out the side here. BMS had already split the wires off at almost a perfect spot. Then I was able to run, I believe that's the mass airflow plug, and I just ran it up through this wire loom, brought it out through one of these open holes here. There's the stock connector, and I usually just leave that tucked kind of like there. BMS connector into the sensor. Here's the kind of the bigger plug. This one was a little bit more troublesome, but they recommend that you slide it out of the stock plastic bracket that you can see right there. I didn't need to do that. I think they recommend that because it's sort of hard to access the plug. But all you have to do is reach underneath, and the pen is right at the back. I'm not going to unplug it right now because my car is probably not in sleep mode, but I mean, I just popped the pen, or popped the clip right then, just that little action right there, and then pull straight back, it would come right out. Unfortunately, there wasn't really a good way to hide that. Not really a great place to tuck it. There is a little bit of room in there. I might try to do that a little bit later, make that a little less obvious. Your last plug is right down there. You can see the zip tie right there. That's the BMS wiring leading to the sensor. I found it pretty easy to reach down right in here in front of that hose, and you have pretty good access to the plug right there. Because of the revision of my box, I did not have a plug A. So that's really it. That's all that was necessary. When you have the battery out, the OBD2 will slide right through a rubber boot right over there. I used about a 2-foot long section of 10 gauge solid insulated wire. There was a scrap at Home Depot. The guy actually just gave it to me. I'll show you the inside. So there's the OBD2. I just routed the cable straight up. Hard to see. I did have to take this out, which required removal of that screw there, and then it just slid forward. Make sure that you get it back in that little plastic clip there. Otherwise it'll be flopping around right at your clutch foot. That's no fun. Unless you have an automatic. Boo. So I just realized I never went over the O2 sensor tap. Pretty important, as that's really the only not so plug and play item that they provide. So the O2 sensor tap is very easy. You need to pull this shielding back, that way you don't see any damage. Like if you remove this tap, the damage will be under the shielding and the dealership will never see it. In addition, I would highly recommend that you don't put, while it would work if you were to put this tap on the Volkswagen side or the car side, I wouldn't recommend it. You would be damaging the permanent wiring harness, whereas you could potentially just buy a new O2 sensor and there would never be any damage here whatsoever. This part's easily replaceable. This side is not. So don't think you're being a smart guy by going to the factory wiring harness side. I don't know what you would think the gain would be, but just it's not very smart. Eventually having a pierce spot in the wire is going to cause premature wear or damage in some way. This isn't really the best splice. I mean, it's a high quality splice that they provided, but there are better ways. It would have been better if they had provided a true plug and play plug right here that just allowed pass through and a tap. Hopefully in the future they'll get wise about that, because that's a pretty common plug. So anyways, all you're going to do is unscrew the gray plug of the Easy Tap. You're going to slide it over the red wire and then twist down the center body of the splice tap. Then, if you haven't already removed the top cap, you're going to slide the top cap over the blue wire, which was already stripped for me from BMS, and you'll just make sure that that stripped section is sort of spread out a little bit and twist it down. You'll see that there's a spike in the center of that splice body. In the center of this, there's a little spike. You're going to want to make sure that they have contact and just twist that cap down until you can't really twist it any harder. If you have Hulk hands, you might not want to go to full hardness. It is plastic, so I think it'll strip out before it cracks, but also you've got a lot of heat build up back here, so you don't want that plastic to be under a whole ton of stress. I just sort of routed my wires down a little bit. Again, this is not my favorite part about this whole kit. I mean, they did a great job on the OBD2 plug, and I mean, everything is super professional. And then they have a tap kit for back there. And being that this whole thing is to sort of hide from the factory, you don't really ever want to tap on like that, especially when you have a plug right next to it. I just think that was a little bit silly, and maybe they're sort of rushing the product. I think I did remember that this said beta on their website, but maybe in the future we'll see something better. When I first turned my car on, I had 7 errors. They all went away within 3 different driving cycles. The driving cycles for me, I started the car, I revved it a few times, not very high, maybe 3,000 RPM or so, turned it off, waited about 5 minutes, and started the car. 2 of the errors went away, drove it down to the store, turned it off at the store, exited, turned it back on, errors were all still there, drove back to work, and at the end of the day when I started the car there were 0 errors. So it was exactly 3 drive cycles, no issues whatsoever, and the difference is totally amazing. Was it worth it? Fucking A right. So the only modifications I have to this car are a DVX valve instead of the stock diverter valve. I plan to do cold air intake next, but it is completely noticeable and very worth the money.